So this is Body Mechanics 2. We're going to discuss safety features, the proper way to transfer a patient from a stretcher or a bed onto our radiographic table and back to their bed. Again, I will post another video that I found on YouTube that actually has the patient doing that. But the first thing I want to talk about right now is assessment of your patient. As you approach your patient, make sure you identify that you have the right patient and check their ID band. Assess your patient, ask them how are they doing today, explain what you're going to be doing. I'm going to be doing a radiographic procedure that requires you to move from the stretcher to a radiographic table, and ask the patient if they are able to stand or if they need assistance. Depending on what the patient tells you, you're going to do different things. If the patient's able to sit up and sit on the stretcher and walk to the bed, they're pretty much going to be doing everything on their own. You are going to stand by and assist. All stretchers should be locked whenever the patient is not being moved. Also, the stretcher should be at the lowest level. It should not be left at any point high like this. It should always be at its lowest level. Obviously, you're going to leave your patient in a comfortable position, whether it's lying flat or sitting up a little bit, covered, and with the side rails up. If you're walking away from a patient that's on a stretcher, that's what you have to do. Brakes are on, side rails are up, the patient is comfortable, and the stretcher is to its lowest level. So let's talk about bringing this patient over to the radiographic table and they need assistance. I'm going to undo the brakes. The brakes are on all four of the wheels, right here, right here. And when the brake is on its neutral position, the stretcher can be easily moved around. So if I want to move this patient onto the table and this patient is not able to stand on and they need assistance, I'm going to put the stretcher close to the table, put my brakes on. If I have sandbags available, I will use them as well, just for additional safety. Although I have checked the brakes work, I want to make sure that I have additional support at the wheels. The next thing I'm going to do is raise this table up to a comfortable position for my height. When moving a patient, I want to make sure that I am moving a patient at the level of my center of gravity, which is about this area for me. I'm also going to make sure that this patient going from the stretcher to the table is slightly higher than the table. Because we want to go downhill, we do not want to go uphill. Okay, the next thing I would do is, depending on the patient's ability to move, I will ask for assistance from my teammates. Now let's say a patient really doesn't want to get off the stretcher and walk over to the table, but they can on their own slide over. At this point, all I need to do is lower my side rail, ensure that I'm as close as possible to the bed, so I can adjust that right now. And then I will stand on this side, lower this, lower my side rail and stand by the patient's side bit and ask them to move. Assisting them if needed, moving their pillow if needed, but I am going to kind of stand here just to ensure that the stretcher doesn't move back as they're moving over to the table. If the patient needs total assistance, I will ask the patient to cross their arms on top of their chest. I'm going to remove any pillows that are under the patient, and then I will call for additional moving help. There are two ways of transferring a patient from a stretcher. One of those is using a device called the smooth mover. When our patients come on stretchers, they normally have a sheet, and what we do is we remove the sheet from under the mattress, get it really close to the patient, and the person on this side would then roll the patient up. There may be 1, 2, and even 3 additional helpers that can grab the feet, the head, and somebody can grab the sliding board and slide it under the patient while I hold the patient up. And then we roll the patient back, and then all at the same time on my count would then slide the patient completely onto the sliding board and then onto the table. The same process would apply for when the patient is coming back. The other method of working or moving a patient is just using the sheet. So instead of using the sliding board, we would all grab the sheet really tight and close to the patient on all 4 sides. And again, the more people that you can get to help, the better. I would be on this side, somebody will be opposite from me, and one other person at the end. Everyone's going to grab the sheet really tight. We're going to tell the patient to, again, cross their arms on top of their chest, and on our count, we're going to lift the sheet and slide the patient over to the table, and then place their pillow back, cover them, ask them how they're doing, make sure they are okay. And the same process will be done on the way back onto the stretcher. Now, let me just go over that again. If a patient is coming back onto the stretcher from the table, whether you're using the sliding board or a sheet, you want to make sure that this is also slightly lower so that you're not working against gravity. So if the patient's coming from the table to the stretcher, that's what you want to do. You want to have the stretcher lower than the table. If the patient is going from the stretcher to the table, you want to have the stretcher higher than the table. When the procedure is done, when the patient is back onto their stretcher and they're comfortable, they're covered, you want to remove the sandbags. Again, I stepped away from my patient for a minute. My side rails are up. My brakes are on at all times. My patient is ready to go back to their room. I'm going to ensure that they are comfortable. I'm going to make sure my brakes are on, they work, and then I'm going to lower my stretcher to the lowest position. Again, always leave your patient with the side rails up, the brakes on, the lowest position, and make sure they're comfortable and covered. And if they need anything, this is the time to ask before you walk away. And that's it about Body Mechanics 2, Safety and Stretcher.